In progress.
So we start today's class. I don't know exactly. We're in Second Chronicles somewhere, 13, I think, something like that. But we ended last week. Last week we talked about the end of Rehoboam's reign in the south, and then his son Abijam takes over, and Abijam doesn't really help a whole lot. Helps a little bit, but not a lot. But then he dies, and the life is gone. Yeah. His son Asa takes over, and what we hear about Asa in that brief moment we were with him was that he did what was right in the sight of God, and so we do have hope for the southern kingdom. Now, in the northern kingdom, Jeroboam died. His son Nadab takes over, and it's in the north. Things just keep getting worse and worse and worse. So he did what was evil in the sight of God, keeping to the standards that his father set, kind of thing. And so Nadab only rules for 2 years before he's overthrown in a military coup by a general named Baasha. And so that's where we're at right now. Is we've got Baasha as king in the north. We've got Asa as king in the south. And on the horizon, we have a war brewing, but not between them. I think we read over Egypt kind of attacking, but not being successful at that. Kind of half successful. They took all the treasury stuff, but weren't able to overthrow them. And there are countries that are going to try to take advantage of what's going on in that realm, and that's kind of where we find ourselves today. So let me go ahead and share our screen here. How are y'all?
How's everybody? Good. Morning. Good to see you. See you.
Let me stop. Let me redo this here.
Cool.
Share this properly.
Take your time and make sure you feel okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Then that. Okay. Now I feel better. Okay. So we are in Second Chronicles 14. Sorry. Mouse. I lost my mouse.
Find something. Get the cheese. Get the cheese
out.
You'll find it.
Yeah, we had only pet we've ever had with Megan was a hamster named Mozart. Yeah, when Mozart got out, he didn't want to come out. We had to coax him out with all kinds of fun stuff. So he may be gone for 2 or 3 days, and then all of a sudden he'd show up back in his cage.
He wanted to eat.
I guess so. That's so.
Is it hamsters or guinea pigs that they eat South America?
No, but probably guinea pigs. Hamsters really aren't big enough to make a meal.
Guinea pigs get pretty big.
You kind of like whales.
And then they die.
So here we are, Second Chronicles. We're going to start verse 9. Is that where we start? Yeah, verse 9. Yeah. Second Chronicles chapter 14, verse 9.
There's a Cushite.
Yeah.
You saying that last week? Cush.
Yeah. Zerah the Cushite came out against them with an army of 1,000,000 men and 300 chariots, and came as far as Maresha. Asa went out to meet him, and they drew up their lines of battle in the valley of Zephathah at Maresha. So we get kind of a very similar look as Israel versus the Philistines. They draw up their lines on opposing hills, and they, it's a one-on-one type of thing, okay, is what it's supposed to be. Asa cried to the Lord his God, "O Lord, there is no difference for you between helping the mighty and the weak. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rely on you, and in your name we have come against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Let no mortal prevail against you." So Asa, being a good king, yeah, he's doing the right thing. He's saying, God, we're outnumbered, but we know you can take care of all that. And so verse 12 says, so the Lord defeated the Cushites before Asa and before Judah, and the Cushites fled. Asa and the army with him pursued them as far as Gerar, and the Cushites fell until no one remained alive. So 1,000,000 people, although
400,000.
What's that?
Over 400,000.
Well, it says till no one remained alive, but you know, maybe it was one of those circumstances where God sent his angel and, hey, take care of it. And the angel just started sweeping his sword until nothing survived. We've seen it with Sodom and Gomorrah. We've seen it in a few different places where that's so. For they were broken before the Lord and his army. The people of Judah carried away a great quantity of spoil. Now, Cush, as we have come historically to know, is Ethiopia, that region. Zerah is a Nubian name, which means it's from the area of Sudan. And he's a general in the army of Pharaoh Horsakan. We have Egyptian information on that. So Zerah actually lived. We know that. So we kind of take this in a historical view, although the timing may be a little off. But we know when Horsakan the first lived, he was Shawshank. Remember we talked about Shawshank or Solsek? He Horsakan is his son and successor. So we know that Shawshank has died at this point.
He didn't find redemption.
No, I guess not.
It's spelled differently.
Oh,
Yeah. Verse 14, they defeated all the cities around Gerar, for the fear of the Lord was on them. They plundered all the cities, for there was much plunder in them. They also attacked the tents of those who had livestock and carried away sheep and goats in abundance, camels. Then they returned to Jerusalem. So they line up, and God protects them, defeats the Sudanese army, the Kushite, the Ethiopian army, and they take the opportunity to basically pillage everything that's there. But this is a righteous thing, and this God told them that they would prosper. It didn't say how that would happen. So, 2 Chronicles 15. The Spirit of God came upon Azariah, son of Oded. He came out to meet Asa and said to him, "Hear me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you while you are with him. Uh-oh. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you abandon him, he will abandon you." For a long time, Israel was without the true God and without a teaching priest and without law. But when in their distress, they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him, he was found by them. Now, this is referring to the days of the judges, obviously Saul and David and Solomon and, those kings. They did turn to God, at least in some form or fashion, and came back. But most of this is referring to the days of judges when they would fall away. God would raise up a judge, they'd come back, and for a while the judge would die, and then they'd fall back into sin and just an up and down kind of thing. Ezra would use this same message over 500 years later. He would use this same message. So, just thought I'd tell you that.
okay.
Verse 5, in those times, now this was talking about the time of the judges. In those times, it was not safe for anyone to go or come, for great disturbances afflicted all the inhabitants of the lands. They were broken in pieces, nation against nation and city against city, for God troubled them with every sort of distress. But you, take courage. Do not let your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. When Asa heard these words, the prophecy of Azariah, son of Oded, he took courage and put away the abominable idols from all the land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the towns that he had taken in the hill country of Ephraim. He repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the vestibule of the house of the Lord. He gathered all, which was probably damaged by the Egyptians when they came. He gathered all Judah and Benjamin and those from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon who were residing as aliens with them. For great numbers had deserted to him from Israel when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. So you do have people in the north that still have a sense of worshiping the one true God. And so they had deserted the north to come to the south because Asa is good. So they were gathered at Jerusalem in the 3rd month of the 15th year of the reign of Asa. They sacrificed to the Lord on that day from the spoil that they had brought 700 oxen and 7,000 sheep. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and with all their soul. And whoever would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, was to be put to death, whether young or old, man or woman. They took an oath to the Lord with a loud voice, with shouting, and with trumpets and with horns. All Judah rejoiced over the oath, for they had sworn with all their heart and had sought him with their whole desire. He was found by them, and the Lord gave them rest all around. So they sacrificed about a tenth of the spoil, which was enough to feed about 100,000. So, this covenant renewal, you either accepted the covenant or you were put to death. And then in verse 15, that big word, all Judah rejoiced. So, we don't know whether it was out of fear or out of hope, but
Either way.
it doesn't say that anybody died. It says they were threatened with death. Now if you want to follow along in 1 Kings 15 or 2 Chronicles 15, if you want to stay there, you can. It's very similar wording. He also removed his mother Maacah from being queen mother because she had made an abominable image for Asherah. Asa cut down her image and burned it at the Wadi Kidron, but the high places were not taken away. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa, those high places would be the altars to other gods. Okay. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was true to the Lord all his days. He brought into the house of the Lord the votive gifts of his father and his own votive gifts, silver, gold, and utensils. So he has replaced some of that which was stolen by Egypt with some of his own family stuff. So anyway, so little wording, weird stuff here. Asa is, Maacah is actually his grandmother, because Maacah was the daughter of Absalom. And so Asa is actually the great grandson of Absalom. So there is redemption somewhere. But it is of the house of David, because Absalom was a son of David. The image, the Asherah image, is of a phallus. So Kidron is known as the city dump. So outside Israel, that's where they would take their trash and burn it.
It's not the same place as Gehenna or.
No, but Gehenna is very similar. It is one of those Greek terms, yes. So yeah, very similar. 16. There was war between Asa and King Baasha of Israel all their days. That's a little weird because it said that Asa, didn't have any war for the first 10 years, but we don't know exactly when Baasha took over. So could have been 3 years, could have been 10. So who knows? So these are skirmishes. So the way scholars have resolved that time issue, if Asa didn't have any problems for 10 years, well, maybe there were skirmishes, but not all out war. That's how they resolve that. Okay. 1 Kings 15 again, verse 17. King Baasha of Israel, or 2 Chronicles 16. King Baasha of Israel went up against Judah and built Ramah to prevent anyone from going out or coming into King Asa of Judah. So he don't like that those of Ephraim and Manasseh and Simeon are going over to the south. Then Asa took all the silver and gold that were left in the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house and gave them into the hands of his servants. So he has taken all those votive gifts and things and everything that was left over, and he has given them back. This is a pretty practical redemptive action that he's doing. Ramah there means Ramah was a main route. So with King, yeah, got that.
Okay.
We'll be okay. I can handle both of those. So by King Baasha blocking that or building up kind of like a checkpoint, on that main route, he could control who came in and who went, kind of like East Berlin. Where's my mouse? There we go. King Asa sent them to King Ben-Hadad, son of Tabermon, son of Hezion of Aram, who resided in Damascus, saying, "Oh, so I was wrong. I'm skipping the next week's lesson. Sorry." He took all those treasures and he sent them to the king of Aram, who resided in Damascus, which was north of the northern kingdom. "Let there be an alliance between me and you." Uh-oh, like that between my father and your father. "I am sending you a present of silver and gold. Go break your alliance with King Baasha of Israel, so that he may withdraw from me." Ben-Hadad listened to King Asa and sent the commanders of his armies against the cities of Israel. Now, that's not exactly what Asa asked for. He asked that they withdraw from the agreement.
Okay.
But Ben-Hadad, being the warmonger that he is, decided, "Oh, well, if I'm breaking my agreement, that means I can back out." So yes, King Asa here gives away what is left of the temple treasures. And Syria here acted instead of withdrawing, like what Asa asked for. So he conquered, this is Aram here, Ben-Hadad. He conquered Ijon, Dan, Abel Beth Maacah, and all Chinneroth with all the land of Naphtali. When Baasha heard of it, he stopped building Ramah and lived in Tirzah. So he breaks down the checkpoint and runs home. Then King Asa made a proclamation to all Judah. None was exempt. They carried away the stones of Ramah and its timber with which Baasha had been building. With them, King Asa built Geba of Benjamin and Mizpah. Okay. So Chinneroth there, that word Chinneroth would eventually retranslate into what we know as Gennesaret, which is the name Galilee. So this is one of the first times we get the place of Galilee. It's an area. Okay, it's a general area, not a specific point. So when Baasha, when Aram starts attacking the north side of Israel, Baasha, he takes all of his troops and he sends them north. Well, that leaves the southern part of the northern kingdom uncovered. And so Asa takes advantage of that, goes to Ramah, where that checkpoint and all that, and he takes all the timber and stones from there and brings them back and builds up, he fortifies the cities in his own area. So, are y'all with me so far? Okay. Verse 7 of 2 Chronicles chapter 16. Are you still there with me there? Okay. At that time, the seer Hanani came to King Asa of Judah and said to him, "Because you relied on the king of Aram and did not rely on the Lord your God, the army of the king of Aram has escaped you. Were not the Cushites and the Libyans a huge army with exceedingly many chariots and cavalry? Yet because you relied on the Lord, he gave them into your hand. For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the entire earth to strengthen those whose heart is true to him. You have done foolishly in this, for from now on you will have wars." So, scholars have taken this to mean that this happened at the 10th year. That this is when the Cushites attacked and when all this. So, when Aram came and did when he made the agreement. Yes.
Is a seer a righteous prophet or is it a witch?
It's in this case, it's a righteous prophet, but not always. It just means this was someone who received good wisdom from God, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he was called by God. So for the moment, he's kind of like an interim prophet. Where was I? Oh, then Asa was angry with the seer. Don't shoot the messenger kind of thing. And put him in the stocks in prison, for he was in a rage with him because of this. And Asa inflicted cruelties on some of the people at the same time. The word used for prison here is mapaket, which literally translates to torture house. And the reason I say that is there is another word for prison, which means to be held in a prison, prison. So So yeah, the translators here have translated into prison, but it's a torture house
No, sure.
because he delivered a word that Asa didn't lie.
No,
So for all the good Asa was,
no.
he was just kind of like David in a sense that he fell back on and got angry. First Kings chapter 16, verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha, saying, and we'll get to that in a minute. So this is the son, Jehu is the son of Hanani, father, son, prophet duo. Yeah. Well, like I said, interim prophets kind of thing. But we've got the word of the Lord. So Jehu is a prophet, whereas Hanani may not be. He's just wise. And this is what Jehu says. Since I exalted you out of the dust and made you leader over my people Israel, and you have walked in the way of Jeroboam and have caused my people Israel to sin, provoking me to anger with their sins. Let me stop right there. Hanani was to the south. His son Jehu was to the north.
And Jehu is saying this, but he's saying what the Lord told him,
Correct. So,
as he understood it.
therefore, I will consume Baasha and his house, and I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. What happened to the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat? Baasha killed them all. So, anyone belonging to Baasha who dies in the city, the dogs shall eat, and anyone of his who dies in the field, the birds of the air shall eat. It's very similar to the message that Jeroboam was given, or to the wife of Jeroboam. Now, the rest of the acts of Baasha, what he did and his powers, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Baasha slept with his ancestors and was buried at Tirzah, and his son Elah succeeded him. So all we hear about Baasha is maybe the first 3 or 4 years of his reign. It said he reigned for 24 years. So we get 20 years of nothing in the north. But when Baasha dies, his son Elah succeeds him. We're going to be in 1 Kings 16 for a little bit. Verse 7. Moreover, the word of the Lord came by the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha and his house, both because of all the evil that he did in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger with the work of his hands, in being like the house of Jeroboam, and also because he destroyed it. So Jehu prophesies for more than 50 years in the north, because we hear about him later on. In the 26th year of King Asa of Judah, Elah, son of Baasha, began to reign over Israel in Tirzah. He reigned 2 years. But his servant Zimri, commander of half his chariot, a lot of these names are going to get confusing here shortly, okay? Just giving you a heads up. But his servant Zimri, commander of half his chariots, conspired against him. When he was at Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza, who was in charge of the palace of Tirzah, Zimri came in and struck him down and killed him in the 27th year of King Asa of Judah, and succeeded him. Right. There's a little bit of a time disparity here. It's probably the 36th year of King Asa, not the 26th. Just okay, because otherwise we get it really confounds a little bit. So, but in order to resolve that, we go with 36 rather.
So in the Northern Kingdom with this Zimri, this is not even a person who's in the royal line at all. I mean, this is just someone who did a coup and took over, and
Yeah,
so now we're not even going through
it makes it sound well.
inheritance.
The North,
lines.
right? The North was never promised the inheritance.
Yeah.
So we end up with several different dynasties. Some of them are long-lived, some of them are short-lived. In a few minutes, you're going to find the name Omri, not Zimri, but Omri. And Omri begins the line of Ahab. Ahab is who comes from that line. And there's 4 kings in that line. Well, a queen, but in that.
But we're to the point where
It is all out, just
family line doesn't mean
does
anything.
not mean a thing. And it makes it sound like Zimri got drunk and started talking out against the you can picture it. He's talking out against the king's family and all that. I can't believe he sent us here to do all this and all. He's a horrible leader. Then somebody goes to him saying, why don't you do something about it? Okay, I will. And, here we go. He kills Elah. And he's one of the ranking commanders because he's commander over half the chariots. So when he began to reign, as soon as he had seated himself on his throne, he killed all the house of Baasha. He did not leave him a single male of his kindred or his friends. So he didn't only kill his family, he killed his friends' families too. Thus Zimri destroyed all the house of Baasha, according to the word of the Lord, which he had spoken against Baasha by the prophet Jehu, whatever you want to say. Because of all the sins of Baasha and the sins of his son Elah that they committed and that they caused Israel to commit, provoking the Lord God of Israel to anger with their idols. Now, the rest of the acts of Elah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? I don't know. I find that book. In the 27th year of King Asa, probably 37th, of Judah, Zimri reigned 7 days in Tirzah.
Sorry.
So,
You're getting shorter all the time.
in 7 days, he killed the whole house of Baasha and all his friends too. All of Baasha's friends in a week's time. Now the troops, it's funny how the narrative changes, does this. Now the troops were encamped against Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines. Tirzah, I say this is a brief capital. Tirzah, they keep going back to Tirzah, but right now Tirzah is the capital for Zimri, okay? Instead of Samaria. And the troops who were encamped heard it said, Zimri has conspired and he has killed the king. Therefore, all Israel made Omri, the commander of the army, king over Israel that day in the camp. So Omri is probably the other leading general. Zimri was in charge of half the chariots. He does a military coup, but he doesn't have the full support. This is the other half that hears about it going, what? We don't like Zimri. We want Omri. And so they make him Omri. No, they make Omri king. So Omri went up from Gibbethon and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. When Zimri saw that the city was taken, he went into the citadel of the king's house. He burned down the king's house over himself with fire and died. So he committed suicide because of the sins that he committed, doing evil in the sight of the Lord, walking in the way of Jeroboam, and for the sin that he committed, causing Israel to sin. Now, the rest of the acts of Zimri and the conspiracy that he made, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? No, don't have the book. Okay. 7 days. King for 7 days. I was talking, I guess it was you, Ron.
Barbara Jordan.
I wrote a book. It's a more of a memoir, and I let Ron read it, and he mentioned a story that I had mentioned there about Barbara Jordan. Remember Barbara Jordan? Barbara Jordan had 2 sisters. Well, one of them, Benny Cresswell, was my music teacher in junior high. And I got to meet Barbara Jordan one time as she came to the school. But Barbara Jordan has the honor of being governor of Texas for a day. The first woman governor of Texas, and also the first Black governor of Texas. And the way it worked was it happens occasionally. I think they may have written laws to prevent it from happening again. But what happened was the governorship was switching hands, and the governor and lieutenant governor were leaving on a particular day, but the new governor and lieutenant governor didn't get sworn in until 2 days later. It fell over a weekend. So that Sunday, there was no governor. And her being third in charge, being the head of the Senate of Texas, became the governor, the acting governor for the day. And so I like that story. Anyway, so that it's kind of like that. I mean, he was king here for 7 days, but yeah, he did it to himself here. Verse 21 of 1 Kings chapter 16. Then the people of Israel were divided into 2 parts, as if they weren't already.
Now, are they talking about Israel in the north? They're talking about the north So now there's civil war between Judah and Israel, but there's civil war between in Israel.
Correct, because you have Zimri and Omri, but now Omri has been made king and killed Zimri. The people of Israel are divided in two over Omri. Okay? Half of the people followed Tibni, son of Ginath, to make him king, and half followed Omri. But the people who followed Omri overcame the people who followed Tibni, son of Ginath. So Tibni died, and Omri became king. In the 31st year of King Asa of Judah, probably the 41st, because he was king for 42 years, I think. Omri began to reign over Israel. He reigned for 12 years, 6 of them in Tirzah. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver. He fortified the hill and called the city that he built Samaria after the name of Shemer, the owner of the hill. So now y'all know where the name Samaria comes from. And that becomes their new capital. So Omri did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as all the kings of the north did. He did more evil than all who were before him. For he walked in all the way of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and in the sins that he caused Israel to commit, provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger by their idols. So this civil war takes place over a 5-year period. And then Samaria becomes the new capital again. So
What year would this have been, you know?
we're talking in the 950s,
Okay.
somewhere 940s, 950s, BCE. Now, the rest of the acts of Omri that he did and the power that he showed, are they not written in the book of the Annals, Kings of Israel? That's all we hear about Omri. Omri slept with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria. His son Ahab succeeded him. Now, Omri is known to have existed because of the Moabite stone that was found in 1868, and some Assyrian inscriptions have him mentioned in there as well. So Omri, in order to be in the Assyrian inscriptions, had to have had some kind of contact with them at some point. So we do have historical proof that Omri existed. In the 38th year of King Asa of Judah, Ahab, son of Omri, began to reign over Israel. Ahab, son of Omri, reigned over Israel and Samaria 22 years. Ahab, son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord more than all who were before him. It's getting progressively worse and worse and worse. And as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, he took as his wife Jezebel, the Baal of the Sidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. He erected an altar for Baal in the house of Baal that he built in Samaria. Ahab also made a sacred bull. Jezebel, the word translates into where's Baal, but depending on how it's pronounced, also means dung. Now that's interesting because when Jezebel dies, that becomes a major thing. That her name kind of lives up to itself, if that's the case. Ahab did more to provoke the anger of the Lord God of Israel than had all the kings of Israel who were before him. In his days, Hiel of Bethel built Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, and set up its gates at the cost of his youngest son, Segub, according to the word of the Lord that he spoke by Joshua, son of Nun. In Joshua 6:26, they are commanded not to rebuild Jericho, because if you do, its its foundation will cost the lives of the firstborn. Its gates will cost the life of the youngest.
Wow.
So it seems, well, it seems that the prophecy in Joshua is being played out now.
So he just struck them dead.
Yeah, or they died during the construction of some sort. So yeah, so something that happened way back during Joshua's time. And you got to remember, Joshua, they're only 40 to 50 years separated from the Exodus at that point when that happened.
That's what they.
Now, the rest of all the acts of Asa, all his power, all that he did, and the cities that he built, are they not written in the book of the Annals of the Kings of Judah? Don't know, don't have the book. But in his old age, he was diseased in his feet. Now, some scholars have tried to resolve this by saying that he had peripheral vascular disease that turned into gangrene or something like that. Why? We don't know. We just know he was diseased in his feet. Leave it at that.
Maybe them being stuck in his mouth so long.
Maybe.
Fungus.
Now, we've got a lot of information in Second Chronicles that ain't in First Kings 15, so I'm gonna kind of break them down here. Then Asa slept with his ancestors, dying in the 41st year of his reign. They buried him in the tomb that he had cut out for himself in the city of David. They laid him on a bier that had been filled with various kinds of spices prepared by the perfumer's art, and they gave him a very great fire in his honor. Now, these fires were not for cremation; they were for like an honor burial.
Bonfire.
Right. So his son Jehoshaphat succeeded him and strengthened himself against Israel. Jehoshaphat. He back in Second Chronicles 17 there. He placed forces in all the fortified cities of Judah and set garrisons in the land of Judah and in the cities of Ephraim that his father Asa had taken. The Lord was with Jehoshaphat because he walked in the earlier ways of his father. He did not seek the Baals, but sought the God of his father and walked in his commandments and not according to the ways of Israel. Therefore, the Lord established the kingdom in his hand. All Judah brought tribute to Jehoshaphat, and he had the great riches and honor. His heart was courageous in the ways of the Lord. Furthermore, he removed the high places and the sacred poles from Judah. That's what his father didn't do. In the 3rd year of his reign, he sent his officials Ben-Hail, Obadiah, Zechariah, Nathanael, and Micaiah to teach the cities of Judah. That Obadiah is a very popular name, so I'm just giving you a heads up. There were like 13 Obadiahs mentioned. This ain't the prophet. Well, probably isn't the prophet. With them were the Levites, Shemaiah, Nethaniah, Zebediah, Asahel, Shemiramoth, Jehonathan, Adonijah, Tobijah, and Tobadonijah. Yeah, you got Tobijah and Adonijah, Tobadonijah. Anyway. One of these Levites, the priest Elishama and Jehoram. They taught in Judah, having the book of the law of the Lord with them. They went around through all the cities of Judah and taught among the people. So these are the first evangelists of Jews.
Well, tell me that the Holy Spirit did not influence Jehoshaphat because, I mean, he comes up out of all this trash.
He had a long time to watch his father. His father reigned for 42 years. Asa reigned for 42 years. He had a lot of time to see what worked, what didn't, when they prospered, when they didn't. And so I think Jehoshaphat made that connection that, hey, when we follow God, things are good for us. When we don't, things aren't so good. So
That's kind of the whole thing.
yeah, God. He grew up in the church, it looks like, at least in the synagogue. He grew up in the synagogue. The fear of the Lord fell on all the kingdoms of the lands around Judah, and they did not make war against Jehoshaphat. Some of the Philistines brought Jehoshaphat presents and silver for tribute, and the Arabs also brought him 7,700 rams and 7,700 male goats. Jehoshaphat grew steadily greater. He built fortresses and storage cities in Jerusalem or in Judah. He carried out great works in the cities of Judah. He had soldiers, mighty warriors in Jerusalem. So he was very successful. We're almost done. I know I'm trying to finish. This was the muster of them by ancestral houses. O Judah, the commanders of the thousands, Adnah, the commander with 300,000 mighty warriors, and next to him, Jehohanan, the commander with 280,000. And next to him, Amasiah, son of Zikri, a volunteer for the service of the Lord, with 200,000 mighty warriors. Of Benjamin, Eliada, a mighty warrior with 200,000 armed with bow and shield, and next to him, Jehozabad, with 180,000 armed for war. These were in the service of the king, besides those whom the king had placed in the fortified cities throughout all Judah. So he had conscription soldiers, but he also had volunteers in the sum of almost 600,000 volunteers. So next week, well, we get to hear about Elijah. Elijah, Ahab, and Jezebel don't get along. We get the story of the widow's son, Ahab and Elijah. We basically hear several very knowledgeable stories, stories that we know. We get to hear them and read them from maybe hopefully a different perspective.
He became a great hero of the Jewish nation.
Who's Elijah? Well, yeah, he is. Moses is considered the lawgiver. Elijah is considered major prophet. And so whenever you hear these things about Jesus in transfiguration, we see Moses and Elijah. When we get to John's Revelation, the two witnesses are believed to be Moses and Elijah. And so, yeah, those two are very big in Jewish understanding and theology. In addition, I want to say that with as great as Elijah was, at the end of Elijah's life, and this is kind of a spoiler alert, but at the end of Elijah's life, when he gives his mantle to Elisha, he asks that God grant him a double measure, double portion of grace, and that's what he says. But and interestingly, Elisha performs twice as many acts as Elijah does. So Elijah got a whole lot more coverage in scripture than Elijah did, but Elijah was considered the greater because Elijah did not die. He just taken.
We're not gonna have Sunday school, Rich.
That's up to y'all. Do you want Sunday school? I'm gonna be here anyway.
We're gonna be here anyway.
Okay, yeah, we have, well, I'll mention all that, during announcements, but, if the weather holds up, we plan on doing a sunrise service at 7:30 out in the park. I don't anticipate more than 15 people out there, so. But it's just going to be, I'm gonna take my, my amp and microphone, have a little bitty service out there.
So that'd be over about, what, 8, a little after 8?
Yeah, 8:05, yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you need people to help set up, you holler.
See y'all next week.
Okay.